The quartz revolution in the 1970s was the beginning of the end, not just for the mechanical watch industry, but of a generation who could tell time by looking at the hands and face of an analog clock. LED displays like the one on this National Semiconductor LED watch could be easily read using its 4-digit display showing hours and minutes, seconds, day and date, and month by repeatedly pushing the side button. This watch has a Swiss-made case, electronic components manufactured in the United States, and was assembled in Malaysia. In this video, I'll show you my attempts to return this watch to its original condition, but more significantly, you'll see the devastating effect of when batteries go bad in electronics, and learn how to remediate the corrosion. The LR43 batteries are held in place with a clip that joins them in series and grounds the power to the case by pressing against the case back. As we dig into the case, you'll see several types of battery leak contamination. When batteries, in this case alkaline batteries, get to the end of their life, they can generate hydrogen gas. This gas pressure builds until the battery casing splits, releasing the battery chemicals. To restore this watch, I'll need to get the movement out, but it looks like it's melded itself to the case.
Ha! Look what I just did to my tweezers.
That was an unwanted watchmaking learning experience. Fortunately, these are not my new good Dumont brass tweezers. Let's take a closer look at what is sticking this movement into the case. There's a single circuit board with the display on one side and the electronics on the other that is held in the case with this plastic spacer ring. It should pop out easily, but it's being held into the case by the battery corrosion. There we go. All right, let's take a look at what we have. The first thing I notice is how cool and retro that LED display is. There's definitely corrosion on the movement and inside the case. And we're going to start by mechanically cleaning off that copper oxidation wherever we could reach it, being careful not to damage any of the circuitry. As I see how much corrosion is coming off, I'm becoming more conscientious about how I'm handling it and dumping the powder onto wet paper towel to keep it from getting airborne. When these batteries ran out, I'll bet the watch was put in a drawer and forgotten about. The only sure way to prevent batteries from bursting in your electronics is to remove them, which is a rather impractical proposition, so the risk of purchasing a forgotten electronic watch where the batteries have gone bad is high. After loosening them, I'm picking up the biggest corrosion crumbs with a piece of Rodico, that green watchmaking putty. Overall, the case looks like it's in pretty good shape. How about the pushers? They look okay. There's lots of micro scratches on the red plastic lens. Man, I love looking at this LED display. Look at those superfine wires. The corrosion may have compromised the circuit board, so I need to carefully pry off the plastic shroud if I'm going to successfully clean this watch. The white powder you'll see on the outside of the battery is likely potassium hydroxide, which is the electrolyte used in alkaline batteries. When this chemical reacts with the copper circuits and components, either through direct contact or through off-gassing, copper hydroxide is formed, which appears as a blue solid precipitate getting on the copper parts and in the case. Both the battery chemicals and the resulting copper hydroxide are skin, eye, and respiratory tract irritants, so as this video progresses and I realize the extent of the battery corrosion, you'll see me switch to finger cots and eventually vinyl gloves for protection. I'm also wearing glasses to protect my eyes, and I work in a large ventilated shop. Battery chemicals and the resulting corrosion are nasty stuff, so please take precautions to protect yourself. The plastic shroud is friction fit on 3 plastic posts that are attached to the circuit board.
And there we go. Well, that's definitely going to need a bath.
With the circuit board free, we can take a closer look at it under the microscope. I found an Easter egg on the LED display. It's a little letter N for National Semiconductor. Some of the heaviest corrosion buildup was on these copper posts, which are the contacts that the pushers make contact with to switch the display and set the watch. Using a watch movement holder to keep the display off the table and keep the circuit board level, I'm going to try to remove the corrosion using a 5% solution of white vinegar to dissolve the alkaline corrosion. I'll also be using distilled water and isopropyl alcohol to clean up after the vinegar. I have these little foam cleaning sticks. And again, we want to try to keep the watch level and not let the liquids get onto the display. This area looks like it took the direct hit from the leaking batteries, with the biggest buildup of the copper hydroxide, so much that it formed crystals.
And here we go. Tiny bit of vinegar. Right on the tip.
As soon as the acidic vinegar hits the copper crystals, you can see it start bubbling. I'm being very stingy with the vinegar because I don't want it to get into places it shouldn't be, but you'll see as the project continues that it's probably okay to use more. Oh yeah, look at it go. After allowing the vinegar to fizz for a few minutes, I followed up with a larger dry swab and tried to remove as much of the blue copper as I could. While most of the powdery stuff that was on the surface came off, there were some blue crystals that were hard as little rocks, so I knew that it was going to require a second application.
I'm going to be a little bit more generous with my vinegar now.
It took several passes with the vinegar, followed up with the isopropyl alcohol to get the circuit board really clean. Occasionally I used the soft plastic point of the cleaning swab to break the corrosion clumps loose. While I scrub, I thought I'd give you some fun facts about National Semiconductor. The company was founded in 1959 in Connecticut and they moved to California in 1968. Being an early pioneer in analog semiconductors, they've been credited as the ones to put the word silicon into Silicon Valley. Back to circuit board cleaning action, I occasionally used a cotton swab to remove some of the corrosion. The cotton is more abrasive than the foam pads. In 2011, National Semiconductor became a part of Texas Instruments, another semiconductor and technology company, where they continued to make analog circuits, integrated circuits, audio electronics, microcontrollers, network products, electronic sensors, and display technology. So let's take a closer look at our cleaned circuit board. Wow, much better. Oh, until we look at it from an angle. That corrosion is insidious. So I knocked it loose, cleaned it up the best I could with some Rodico, applied some vinegar, and another rinse with isopropyl alcohol, and I'm starting to feel really optimistic that we'll be able to get this watch ticking, or blinking again. Turning my attention to the plastic ring, take a look at the label when I flip it over. I inadvertently removed a lot of the printing just by handling it, so I was particularly careful to stay away from it with the isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to get the last crumbs from inside the case, and the case will be washed in the ultrasonic cleaner. Fast forward, I've ultrasonic cleaned the case and buffed it on my bench grinder, and I'm really happy with the results. It was important to me to preserve the painted National Semiconductor logo on the crystal, so I masked it off with heat tape before polishing the case in the crystal. I'm carefully removing the tape adhesive residue with isopropyl alcohol, and then I will try to selectively mask the logo and, using Polywatch, remove the remainder of the surface scratches. Polywatch works great on all mildly damaged acrylic crystals, and if you're wondering how it works, well, it works by removing a thin layer of the acrylic crystal, as you could see evidenced by the red on this cloth. Right on, Polywatch. We're looking good. Here's a confession. I didn't even know this watch had this gray flat caseback gasket until after washing the case the second time in the ultrasonic. And then there it was. And it looks good. So we'll give it some silicone before remounting it on the caseback. We are getting very close to reassembling this watch, putting in some batteries, and giving it a test. Like you saw earlier, there's two posts that are the electrical contacts, and they go through the slots in that plastic spacer. Here's where one of the batteries sit, and as you can see, it lost one of the contact wings. I want to very carefully bend this up just a little bit for good contact.
Oh,
Fun with watches.
we broke them off. You know, all the battery has to do is sit on there. If we're not making contact, we just might need to put something there to create more contact.
As you remember, there are 3 posts on this watch which have to go into the plastic. Now there's also this component standing up. I suspect that the quartz crystal might be in that metal container, and since it's a little bit wobbly on its legs, I want to make sure we don't pin it down and sandwich it and possibly damage the electrical contacts. So easy as we go. Just easing it into place. We're looking good. So let's dust it off and reassemble the movement in the case. All we need to do is make sure the pushers line up with their respected electrical contacts. There we go. Looking good.
Positive down and negative down. I hope that makes contact. This just now pokes down into that hole. Hope it works. Well, here's the test. Ready? Oh, it lights up! Did you see it? Do it again. Yay! So we're just going to give this a little snug.
Overall, I'm very pleased with how the watch came out, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it looks like on the stainless steel expansion bracelet. I'm going to go through the settings real quick, get the watch set, put in the time, the day, the date, and I'm using some tape and plastic here to protect the case from scratching when I put on the band.
Out with the old and in with the old. I need to eat a burger or something. Look at that, it goes to seconds if you hold it. All right, I'm gonna need to change this strap though. Thumbnail. As you can see, the watch is now on a flat black leather strap, and I think it works quite nicely on the black leather strap. What time is it? 3:14. Actually, it isn't. Full transparency, this watch has a glitch. I think it has a short circuit. The display button, sometimes when you press it, it goes into setting mode, and I've had it back open, and I really couldn't correct that. So it's a cautionary tale. I paid $15 for this watch, and for me, it was worth the price of admission just for the fun that I had working on it, and I hope you had fun watching me tell the story. I hope you don't have to deal with a watch with leaked battery like this, but if you do, I hope that this video in some way helped. If you like this kind of content, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and of course, leave your comments in the space below. I'm Mike, the channel is Watch with Mike. I look forward to our next time together.